All right, now to document this transformation of this art project, what I can do first is get rid of the exposures I know aren't helpful. And I know for sure that these two are not helpful. That's just when I was focusing the camera, locking in the manual settings. And then I can decide which one of these do I like more, 524 or 525. They're both just slightly off, just from pressing the shutter release. But both of them kind of work pretty well, and this one's maybe a little bit closer to exact. So I'll get rid of 524. Yeah, we started with the sponge. Just a sponge that was thrown away in the ceramics lab. It was kind of a grody, weird textured sponge. We cut a hole in it, stuck it on the tripod. All right, so now I've kind of gone through, and each exposure is one I want to potentially use. You want to look in preview and make sure that none of them feel like they're going backwards, right? That everything is moving the story forward. And there'll be another opportunity for you to kind of edit it down. Let's see. Maybe there are a few others I can get rid of. I remember we added paper clips at some point, and that just didn't have a whole lot of visual impact. But I don't need to edit it down to just 9 frames yet. Oh, there you see we added something and then it fell off. So that's going to be what I want to get rid of. 542. This is why I moved them onto my desktop. I still have them all. Yeah, here are all the paper clips. So from 543 all the way to 550. Really 552. So 543 to 552. I don't really need any of those, because they're just adding paper clips one by one. Adding tape, adding stuff in this area. Yep, and then more and more gets added. Okay, so I think I'm ready to bring these into Photoshop. So this is how you do it. You open up Photoshop and then you go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. And then you're going to browse for that folder. And I have mine under Documents, but you can just put it on your desktop. That's probably the easiest thing. And I got a lot of exposures. And then you can say, attempt to automatically align source images. You can try that. For mine, that's not going to work because I did a good job making the background very much the same. So if there was like a painting in the background that never changed, it would be good to align it to that. But if I try to align these, it's going to move things all over the place trying to figure out something to match. So instead, I just have to use my exposures as they are. I say OK. It will open up one Photoshop file, and it will stack all of those different exposures in order using the titles on top of each other. So when I did my expression test, I did this with 5 photos. Now it's going to do it with something like 85 photos, or however many exposures I used. And so obviously we're not going to process them individually, right? We're going to try to line them up, and then we'll process them all collectively using adjustment layers over the top. And notice I have a lot of space around the thing that I want to document. And I'm going to crop down to a square once I've lined them all up. You know, I actually do have that tripod. I could try automatically aligning them, and it would probably match the tripod every time. But often it does really weird stuff too. So I can try it both ways, and we can see. Okay, so here's the first. So let me save that. I'll call it not aligned. Put that on the desktop just to show you the difference, and you're allowed to do either way. Then I'm going to go to File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. Do the exact same thing, but this time I'll select Automatically Align. Be sure to select all of your files. Click that this time, and it will create another one. Now this might take a little bit more effort to align because it has to, like doing a panoramic, it has to kind of survey the pixels and see which things are similar. And this will basically rotate, distort the image. And hopefully it won't have to move things too much. It's just sometimes even just when you press the shutter, you move the camera enough that it's a slightly different positioning. And that's where remote shutter triggers are helpful. A lot of cameras you're able to program in sequence of shots, you know, like a shot every second, and it will automatically take an exposure. And then you can keep it hands-free. So now it's trying to align them. And I'll pause this until it's done. All right, so it finished lining them up, but I can see that it distorted some of them quite a bit. So I'm guessing it's a little weird. So how do we check that? Well, we can go to Window, Timeline, Frame Animation, Make Frames from Layers. What the frames are basically programming this little eyeball on our layers. So this is just a reference for visualizing the layers that we create. I select the first frame, which is actually my last exposure because of the way they stack the photos in order. I hold down Shift to get to my last frame. That selects all the frames. And then down where you see a little time signature, I can set a timing. And I'm going to do 0.5 seconds. So half a second, and I'm going to play it through forever. And that allows me to just look at it. And actually, so far, oh yeah, it's a little weird there. That does a pretty good job lining it up, though. You can see how the tripod's staying perfectly still. Yeah, I think I can actually work with this. So it does distort a few of them, and for some reason, it puts this one way off. But I'll just get rid of that frame, right? I actually don't need these two at all. Okay, now here's the thing. If I hit delete when I'm on a frame, what that does is actually delete the layer. So that's a little scary. So don't do that. Instead, to get rid of an animation frame, you drag it down to the trash can within the animation window. I'm going to do that with those two. And then when you select, you see that the eyeball will appear next to the frame. And so the eyeball will not appear next to these two because they no longer have a frame. So then I can select that layer and hit delete and get rid of those two layers. Okay, now let's play it through again. Looks pretty lined up. I'm trying to just focus on the mask in here, the creation. I thought I got rid of that little hat, but it shows up and then disappears. So I want to find what layer that is. First, I'm going to delete the frame by going down to the trash can. And then I'm going to delete that layer by selecting it and hitting delete. So while it's animating, you can kind of clean it up, get rid of any layers that don't work. And it could be helpful. It's showing backwards right now. So if I select all my frames, hold down Shift, select all of them, go to my frame tools, I can reverse them, and this will put them in the order that they were shot. Okay, now how can I play with my square cropping? Well, I'm going to let it get to the end because this was an additive process, so it got biggest by the end. And you can see there are a few steps where I had to kind of reposition it. And now what I'm going to do is go to my very top layer and create a new layer. Now this is what's tricky because I already outputted all my frames. Anything I put in this layer will automatically be added to every animation frame. So what I'm going to do is use the rectangular marquee tool, hold down Shift, and make a square. A nice square composition. If I don't like that, I can hit Command D to deselect, and I can do it again. Hold down Shift, make a square. And then I can use my guides. Maybe I want my square to start about there. And that height looks pretty good, maybe just a tiny bit taller. Okay, so now Command D, I'm going to try it again, hold down Shift. This isn't the crop tool, this is just the rectangular marquee tool. And I make my square. Okay, I think I can go closer to the top. Go a little bit smaller overall. There we go. So that's the cropping I'm going to try. How do I make a little window to showcase that so I'm not distracted by all this stuff going on the outside? So I say select inverse, and then I'm going to fill on this new blank layer, fill it with black. It's like a matte that I'm putting in. Go to Edit, Fill, Black, Normal 100%. Then Command D to deselect, and now I'll play it through again. And now I'm able to focus directly on what was documented. Not sure why it paused there. Buffering. That tells me it's a good time to save it. But yeah, everything fits within the square. I think that's a good cropping. So now I say File. I've done a lot with the timeline here, deleting layers and making a mask to show the cropping I want. So this is a good time to save it. And I'm going to call this Carl Fry, Assignment 11, Magpie Mask, Aligned. To the desktop. And now I'll do those same things. You know, we'll learn through repetition. I'll do those same things at the beginning of the next demo on the unaligned layers. And then I'll see which one documents the changes better. Because this project is really about documenting change over time. And the problem with not using the computer to align it, if your photos are out of alignment, then we need to do it by hand, and that takes a little work.